If you ever want to strike fear into an audience, just tell them you are going to be making a live-action remake of their beloved story. Whether it be book, movie, or TV show, a lot of live-action remakes, especially lately, have been nothing short of absolutely dog shit. In fact, if anyone was making a live-action remake of my favorite show, I'd probably shit my pants on the spot. But why are live-action remakes so terrible? You had Cowboy Bebop as the latest example, but it really has just been a trend over the last half decade. You have Disney movies like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, and then you also have some anime remakes like Death Note and Attack on Titan in the early 2010s, while also having the Percy Jackson movie, not to mention the Avatar remake. Today we're going to be looking at why live-action remake sucks, what can be done about them, and will they ever become consistently good. Starting off, what is a live-action or a live-action remake? In today's video, I'm going to be taking not the exact definition, which involves real people or animals, as contrasted with animation or computer-generated effects. I'm going to add in a new different medium as well, leaving in books and comics as well as movies and anime as well as different kinds of cartoons. So pretty much live-action remakes are remakes of different mediums in a real-world setting. You have anime, which like Death Note and Attack on Titan got remade into live-action. Cartoons like The Last Airbender, Lion King, and Mulan, pretty much every famous Disney movie in the last 5 years. You got books as well, like Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, and The Hunger Games, and comics like Marvel and DC Comics, for example. Now, why are they even made in the first place, right? If you're just going to be remaking the same thing in what is admittedly going to be less successful type of genre, because it's really hard to make something like anime or cartoons, putting it into a live action setting, because again, the cartoons just has so many different things like the facial expressions, the jokes all the time, as well as the overreactions that kind of look good when you're watching the cartoon, but when a real actor tries to do it, you're just like, fuck me, the cringe. So the reason they're made is one of two reasons. Number one is the most obvious, and that's nostalgia plus curiosity. It appeals to a much larger audience than usual. For example, when you take the Disney movies from before, Lion King, Mulan, that's generally a children's movie, right? Lion King and Mulan are generally for 5-6-year-old kids, maybe even like 10 to 11-year-old kids who do enjoy a good princess or just Disney movie in general. Now, the reason live-action remakes appeal to a much wider audience is because they bank on both curiosity and nostalgia. Most of us have seen these movies when we were younger, Lion King, for example, Mulan, Aladdin even, and we're kind of curious. We're like, hey, how does the live-action hold up? Not to mention nostalgia kicking in being a very powerful weapon, so now instead of just being to children or adults or adolescents like most TV shows, it appeals to everybody from 5-year-old kids to 60-year-old old men who just want to rewatch Lion King from their glory days. But the other reason is an established audience is much easier to succeed monetarily, even if the movie sucks. For example, how good is the new Cowboy Bebop live-action TV show? Most people objectively say it's absolute dog shit, garbage, crime against humanity. It was even brought up for consideration to being live action. That's most people. Now, even though it sucks, most of you have probably watched it. Most people who are saying it sucks have watched the entire thing, which makes it successful both monetarily, and it also provides some sort of reach, kind of. It's kind of like free marketing. Even if you say the movie sucks, there are going to be people who are going to go out and seek the movie for yourselves. Whereas if you make a completely different TV show, there's a risk of it failing. And if it fails, you are going to fail badly. If you put $1 million into a remake of The Lion King, you're going to get that money back, even if the movie's nothing short of dog shit. However, if you make the Puma King or the Puma Prince or whatever, Fresh Prince of Puma Air or something like that, if it's not good, people aren't going to care about it and you are going to lose monetarily. So you have these big studios like Disney, for example, who really don't give a shit about, let's tell it how it is. They don't give a shit about making a good show. They care about money, essentially. I think we can all agree that, and I think most people working at Disney would agree that. And because of that, the easiest way to do it is to bank in on the nostalgia curiosity, getting an established audience, getting a much larger audience. Even if the movie sucks, you got your money, you can run with it, and if the movie is good or the show is good, hey, you get to keep making more of them. It's just more money for you. Now, are they all bad? No. Right? Especially when you take a look at the early 2000s, stuff like Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, and Marvel movies, for the most part, have been nothing short of bangers. Right? Everybody loves Harry Potter, everybody loves The Hunger Games, or most people at least. Some people don't like the last two movies, but at the end of the day, stuff like Marvel movies, for example, Iron Man, Hulk, Superman, for example, Batman, that appeals to a large amount of people, not to mention the 3 different Spider-Man remakes. So they're not all bad. So what's the difference between a good live action and a bad live action? Let's take a look at why most live action movies, TV shows absolutely suck balls. It's mainly because it's, for the most part, lazy. They're just trying to make a quick buck. That's one of the reasons why a lot of them suck. You know, a lot of people just see a flash in the can, for example, like the Percy Jackson books. They were extremely popular and they were eventually bought from Rick Riordan and they were given the rights to make a TV live action movie. Even though the movie was absolutely terrible, they were still able to make a profit because, again, you have the established audience and you are going to make a profit on remakes because, again, especially if they're live action, people are going to be like, I want to see how this movie looks. I want to see how this kind of shit looks. And because of that, you're always going to win. So that lets the authors, for example, the writers, be lazy, lets them cut back on required CGI, for example. Like Percy Jackson has all these monsters. It has all these just effects when you read through the books and even the comics that if you're really going to spend enough money on CGI to make it look passable, you're going to be spending over half the budget on CGI. And why do that when you're already going to succeed monetarily? The other thing is going to be specific to cartoons and anime. It's because it's just so hard to mimic the style that it has without looking like you're overreaching, for example. For example, think about this, right? One Piece, right? They're making a live action remake. How silly is it going to look to find a real person just stretching like fucking the main character and just punching in from like a screen away? That's not going to look realistic. It's going to look stupid, let's be completely honest. Stuff, for example, stuff like Attack on Titan, the CGI Titans in that movie were absolutely awful, man. And again, it's just absolutely terrible because they don't have to put like money into it to get good CGI, to get good animations, to get like make it actually look real. We already talked about why that's part of a reason, but it's just so hard because cartoons and anime have a style to it. They're able to, I guess, overreact in a way to almost every situation. That's sort of the appeal of it. Cartoons, you can make them do anything, and it's a cartoon. It's not going to look stupid. But if you see somebody becoming like fucking Big Chungus or something like Bugs Bunny did in real life, it's just going to look silly in a way. It takes away the realism that most people expect when they walk in to see live actions. Although if you don't do that style, then you take a large part away from what made the movie or anime so good in the first place. The last Airbender movie, for example, we all remember this rock throwing scene. Yeah, the animation, just the bending in general in that movie was terrible. The actors were, no disrespect whatsoever, but they were all garbage for the most part, except for one or two. And again, with your studio, why are you going to spend money on these things when you're going to make a profit on it anyway? Screw the legacy of the film or genre. Now, why do live action superheroes / Harry Potter / Hunger Games, for example, why are they, for the most part, good? You know, even though some DC movies are a little for the most part, they are a lot better than live action movies. Now, the reason for that is kind of simple. It's because they don't have too many out of this world effects, except for maybe Harry Potter. But even Harry Potter, they did good on the CGI. The acting was good. They put effort into the movie, and it was early 2000s before live actions even really had a niche in the genre, if that makes sense. The only reason someone is going to be making a movie like Harry Potter would be because they actually want to make a movie, not cash in on a quick buck. Superheroes are kind of simple. Like, at the end of the day, Superman is, for the most part, for his fighting scenes, for his action scenes, he's pretty much just punching people. The laser eyes, I guess that's something that really isn't too hard to copy. Like, I could probably do it on fucking Hit Film Express right now. But for the most part, something like Batman, Iron Man, the CGI isn't too intensive. It isn't anything like Attack on Titan, where you have all these just massive titans, or something like The Lion King or Mulan, where literally almost everything about the movie was just sort of imagined, especially like The Lion King. All the animals were CGI'd. You're not going to get a real lion and a real like zebra or some shit like in the same shot. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, another big reason why is because superhero comics in general are they're just simple, right? There's nothing, out of this world expressions, out of this world moves, stuff like that. There isn't anything like, you don't see Superman, Batman doing shadow clone jutsu, for example. It's just not going to happen, and therefore it's much easier to make the movie when you're not spending an exorbitant amount on CGI. And something like Hunger Games or Harry Potter is, for the most part, a book. And if you just tell your story, if you have enough time to tell your story, like Harry Potter took 8 movies, Hunger Game decided to expand the last movie into 2. It could be because they wanted more money, but I think it is mainly because there was a lot to add in the last movie, and because a lot of them have just simple plots for the most part. The Hunger Games. You're playing the Hunger Games. You could probably make a good Hunger Games movie in the allotted time of an hour. But if you're doing something like Death Note, for example, where there's like a large amount of episodes, each of which takes, half hour, 40 minutes, you're not condensing that into a movie. And a live action TV show is probably worse because you're going to be spending a lot more on CGI. You're going to be telling multiple stories instead of just one story in a movie where, yeah, CGI could be expensive, like Harry Potter, for example, but you should be able to do it for the scenes that need it. It's not going to be out of this world. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is the fact that most cartoonish live-action movies, anime and cartoon live-action movies, they sort of overcompensate to try to capture the effect of cartoons, kind of like anime, for example, right? There's a difference between, if like this in anime is a lot more different than if somebody did it in real life, as you can see, like, through right here. They can't really capture the expression that photos, pictures that can move, essentially, which is anime is. They can't capture that same expression, that same imagination. So that's a big part of why live actions a lot of the time just suck balls. The last question I want to get into is, will they ever make consistently good live action movies? Sorry to say it, but honestly, I doubt it. There's a good reason why I doubt it. It isn't just about the CGI, but let me explain, all right? The reason for the rise in Disney live-action movies is, let's be honest, it's a quick buck, all right? Disney's making these live-action movies because there's already a story. It appeals to the larger audience. We already talked about this. They're just going to succeed monetarily, even if the movie fails critically. The other thing is, you also want to take a look at video games and the trend that they have been going through to understand why there will never be a good live-action movie in the near future. Remember back in the early 2010s, late 2000s, you would get, for the most part, a complete game, right? You would get a complete game a lot of the time. You wouldn't have to buy all these DLCs, all these expansion packs, all this different stuff. Maybe they'd sell cosmetic items or maybe a couple new maps on Call of Duty for some money, but a lot of the times they wouldn't be out of this world expensive. Now you have so much loot boxes going on. So many DLCs, expansion packs, like Pokemon, for example. The original Diamond game didn't have any expansions, and then when you look at the newer Pokemon game, each of them have 1 or 2 DLCs. You look at just so many different games right now release unfinished products on release because it just makes the most sense monetarily. At the end of the day, you're going to be forced to buy the DLC if you enjoy the genre, and you are going to be giving more money than if they just spent all that effort all at once, making a good complete game, and then releasing it to you. And the reason it hasn't happened before is because you have these big mega corporations. Call of Duty wasn't very big in the mid-2000s, if they even started then. Neither was anything like Battlefield, or Halo usually is pretty good. But when it comes to video games, especially, they can afford to have shitty products on release. If you're a new studio and you don't start with an absolute banger, you're going to shut down. It's that simple. However, if you're someone like Activision, Blizzard, for example, you're going to be less enticed to spending more money early on and end up decreasing the amount of overall money you can get, because even if it bombs and everybody hates it at the start, like the new Battlefield, people are still going to buy it and people are going to still buy the DLCs. So again, you just end up getting more money this way. The player base is always going to be there, and it's just you're too big to fail essentially, so you might as well try to extract as much money as possible. And I think that's pretty much the basis of why live actions will never be good. Because a lot of the time, if you're going to make a regular live action movie or TV show, it's going to be new. It's going to be something different. You're not going to be able to compare it to anything. But when you're doing something like a remake of a cartoon or an anime or even a book or comic at this point that has a lot of, for example, mythos, kind of like you have a lot of CGI required elements, and anime especially, and cartoons with all those special effects that make it sort of the overcompensation, if that does make any sense, of effects. It's never going to be good in live action, and a lot of the times the only reason they're going to be making live action in the first place is to capitalize on a quick buck. But those are pretty much my thoughts. Let me know down below if you guys agree, disagree. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm completely off the mark. Maybe you thought the new Cowboy Bebop live action was actually good. Let me know down below, and without further ado, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.